Maria Santos never imagined her life would change because of a dog. She was 32 years old, a single mother, and she worked as a maid in one of the biggest mansions in the city. The mansion belonged to a man named Victor Moretti. Everyone in the city knew his name. Everyone was afraid of it too. Victor Moretti was not just a rich businessman. He was the boss of a powerful crime family. People said his name in whispers. Some said he had killed men with his own hands. Some said his enemies simply disappeared, never to be seen again. Maria did not know how much of this was true. But she knew one thing for sure. Working in his house meant living by strict rules. And breaking those rules could cost you everything. Maria had worked for Victor for almost 8 months. She cleaned the floors, washed the dishes, and kept the huge mansion spotless. She needed this job badly. Her son, Leo, was only 3 years old. His father had left them long ago. Maria had no family in the city to help her. This job paid well, better than anything else she could find. So she stayed quiet, worked hard, and followed every rule the house staff manager gave her. There was one rule that mattered more than all the others. Nobody, absolutely nobody, was allowed to touch Victor's dog. The dog's name was Caesar. He was a massive Rottweiler, black and brown, with sharp eyes and powerful jaws. Caesar was not a normal pet. He was trained like a soldier. He guarded the mansion day and night. The house staff feared him almost as much as they feared Victor himself. Caesar attacked anyone who came too close without permission. 2 guards had already been bitten badly in the past year. Everyone knew to stay away from him. Victor loved Caesar more than anything in the world. Some staff members whispered that Victor trusted Caesar more than he trusted his own men. The dog slept in a special room. He ate meals prepared by a private cook. He even had his own bathing schedule, done only by a trained handler named Dmitri. Nobody else was allowed near Caesar. Not the guards. Not the maids. Not even Victor's own family members. Maria understood this rule very well. She made sure to keep Leo far away from that side of the house whenever she brought him along. Normally, Maria could not bring her son to work. But that day was different. Her babysitter had gotten sick suddenly, and Maria had no one else to watch Leo. She was terrified of losing her job, so she made a difficult decision. She asked the house manager, an older woman named Rosa, if she could bring Leo for just one day. Rosa hesitated. She knew the rules were strict in this house. But she also saw the desperation in Maria's eyes. Finally, Rosa agreed, on one condition. Leo had to stay in a small room near the kitchen the entire day. He was not allowed to wander around the mansion. Maria promised to watch him closely. She truly believed she could keep that promise. For the first few hours, everything went smoothly. Leo sat quietly, playing with a small toy car Maria had brought for him. Maria worked nearby, cleaning the kitchen counters and washing the floors. She checked on him every few minutes. But mansions this big have many secrets, many hallways, and many places where a small child can slip away unnoticed. It happened around midday. Maria was called upstairs to help with an urgent cleaning task in one of the guest rooms. She told Leo to stay exactly where he was. She promised she would be back in just 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 15. When Maria hurried back down to the kitchen, her heart nearly stopped. The small room was empty. Leo was gone. Panic hit Maria like a wave of ice water. She searched the kitchen first, then the hallway outside. Nothing. She called his name softly at first, afraid to make noise in a house where loud voices were not welcomed. When she still could not find him, her voice grew louder, more desperate. Other staff members heard her and began searching too. But nobody wanted to go near one particular part of the house. The East Wing, where Caesar lived. Maria's blood turned cold at the thought. She ran toward the East Wing, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. As she got closer, she heard something strange. Water. Splashing water. And laughter. A child's laughter. She turned the corner into the private bathing room, the one reserved only for Caesar, and what she saw made her freeze in absolute shock. There was little Leo, standing barefoot in a puddle of soapy water, giggling with delight. And there, sitting calmly in the large bathing tub, was Caesar. The massive, dangerous, feared Rottweiler was sitting still as a statue while Leo poured a small cup of water over his head. Bubbles covered Caesar's fur. The dog's tail was wagging slowly under the water. Maria could not move. Her mind could not process what her eyes were seeing. This was the same dog that had bitten 2 grown men. This was the same dog that guards were terrified to approach. And her 3-year-old son was bathing him like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Leo!" Maria finally gasped, her voice shaking with fear. Before she could take another step forward, a deep voice spoke from the doorway behind her. Cold, sharp, dangerous. "Don't move." Maria's entire body froze. She knew that voice. Everyone in the mansion knew that voice. She turned her head slowly, and there, standing in the doorway with an unreadable expression on his face, was Victor Moretti himself. He had come home early, and he had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. His eyes moved from Maria, to the soapy water on the floor, to his dangerous dog sitting peacefully in the bath, and finally to the small child still holding the little cup, completely unaware of the danger surrounding him. Nobody in the room said a single word. The silence stretched on, heavy and terrifying. Maria's mind raced through every possible outcome, and none of them looked good. What would Victor Moretti do now? Maria stood frozen in the doorway of the bathing room. Her heart was pounding so hard that she could barely breathe. She had heard stories about Victor Moretti's temper. She had heard what happened to people who crossed him. And now her own son was sitting in a tub with the most dangerous dog in the city, and Victor was standing right there, watching everything. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound in the room was the soft splash of water as Leo continued playing, completely unaware of the danger around him. Victor took a slow step into the room. His eyes were fixed on the dog. Caesar, the fierce Rottweiler who attacked grown men without hesitation, sat calmly in the water. His tail moved gently side to side. He looked up at Victor with soft, relaxed eyes. There was no tension in his body. No warning growl. Nothing. Maria's legs felt weak. She wanted to grab Leo and run, but she was too afraid to move. She had heard whispers from the other staff about men who disappeared after upsetting Victor Moretti. She thought about her son. She thought about her job. She thought about everything she could lose in the next few seconds. "Mr. Moretti, I am so sorry," Maria finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "I did not know he left the kitchen. I will get him out right now. Please, I beg you, do not hurt my son." Victor did not answer right away. He walked closer to the tub, his sharp eyes studying the scene in front of him. Leo looked up at him with a wide, innocent smile. "Doggy is clean now," Leo said proudly, pointing at Caesar with his tiny hand. "I made him pretty." Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment, Maria thought this was the end. She thought he would call his guards and have them dragged away. But instead, something strange happened. Victor knelt down beside the tub, right next to the boy and the dog. He reached out his hand slowly toward Caesar's head. The dog leaned into his touch, still calm, still relaxed. "He has never let anyone near him like this," Victor said quietly. His voice was different now. Not cold. Not angry. Almost confused. "Not my guards. Not my own men. Nobody except Dmitri, and even Dmitri wears protective gloves." Maria did not know what to say. She watched, stunned, as Victor continued studying his dog and her son together. Caesar nudged Leo's small hand with his wet nose, and Leo giggled again, splashing more water without any fear at all. "How did you get in here?" Victor asked, turning his gaze to Leo. His voice was gentle now, almost curious, a tone none of the staff had ever heard him use before. Leo shrugged his small shoulders. "The door was open. I saw Doggy. He looked sad. So I gave him a bath." Victor stood up slowly. He looked at Maria, and for the first time, his expression softened slightly. But it was still guarded, still unreadable. This was a man who had built his entire empire on control and power. Something happening in front of him right now made no sense, and Victor Moretti did not like things that made no sense. "Take your son out of here," Victor finally said. "Dry him off. Get him something to eat." Maria could hardly believe her ears. She had expected punishment. She had expected to be fired on the spot, or worse. Instead, Victor was simply telling her to take care of her child. She quickly moved forward, lifting Leo out of the tub and wrapping him in a nearby towel with shaking hands. "Thank you, sir," Maria whispered. "Thank you so much. It will never happen again, I promise." Victor did not respond. He was still staring at Caesar, who now stood up in the empty tub, shaking the remaining water from his fur. The dog looked at Victor, then walked calmly to a nearby towel and lay down, completely relaxed, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. As Maria carried Leo out of the room, she glanced back one more time. Victor was still standing there, staring at his dog with a strange expression on his face. It almost looked like worry. Or maybe confusion. Maria could not tell. That night, Maria could not sleep. She kept replaying the entire scene in her mind. She was grateful nothing terrible had happened, but something about Victor's reaction bothered her. He had not been angry the way she expected. He had been surprised. Almost shaken. She did not know it yet, but that single moment in the bathing room had planted a seed of curiosity in Victor Moretti's mind, a curiosity that would soon change everything for Maria and her son. The next morning, when Maria arrived for work, Rosa the house manager pulled her aside immediately, her face pale and serious. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you," Rosa said. "Right now." "In his private office." Maria's stomach dropped. She had thought the danger was over. She had thought she had escaped punishment the night before. Now her mind filled with new fears. Maybe Victor had changed his mind overnight. Maybe he had decided she and Leo were too much of a risk to keep around. She walked down the long hallway toward Victor's office, her hands trembling at her sides. The guards outside the door watched her carefully as she approached. One of them knocked twice, then opened the heavy door. Victor was sitting behind his large desk, Caesar lying calmly by his feet. He looked up as Maria entered, his expression serious and unreadable, just like the night before. "Sit down," Victor said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "We need to talk about what happened yesterday. And about something I want you to consider." Maria sat down slowly, her heart pounding once again. Whatever Victor was about to say, she had a feeling her life was about to change forever. Maria sat stiffly in the chair across from Victor Moretti's desk, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Caesar lay quietly by his master's feet, occasionally lifting his head to look at her, then resting it back down. The office was silent except for the soft ticking of an old clock on the wall. Maria waited, unsure of what was coming. Victor leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "Do you know how long I have owned Caesar?" he asked. Maria shook her head slowly. "No, sir." 4 years, Victor said. 4 years, and in that time, he has never once let a stranger touch him without a fight. I trained him myself, with the help of the best handler money can buy. He was bred and trained for one purpose: protection. Aggression when needed. He does not trust easily. He does not relax around people he does not know. Maria stayed quiet, listening carefully. She still did not understand why she had been called into this office. "Yesterday," Victor continued, "your son walked into a locked room, climbed into a tub with my dog, and bathed him like it was nothing. Caesar did not growl. He did not bite. He did not even flinch. In 4 years, I have never seen him behave that way with anyone outside my inner circle." "I am truly sorry, Mr. Moretti," Maria said quickly. "I promise it will never happen again. I will watch him much more closely from now on." Victor raised a hand slightly, stopping her. "That is not why I called you here." Maria blinked, confused. She had expected anger, warnings, maybe even the loss of her job. She had not expected this calm, thoughtful tone. "I have been thinking about this since last night," Victor said. "Caesar has been different lately. Restless. Aggressive, even with people he knows well. My handler, Dmitri, has struggled with him for weeks. Something has changed in him, and none of us can figure out why. But yesterday, for the first time in a long while, I saw him completely calm. Completely at peace. Because of your son." Maria's eyes widened slightly. She had not realized the dog had been having problems. "I want to ask you something," Victor said, leaning forward now, his sharp eyes locked on hers. I want you and your son to spend more time in the house. Not just in the kitchen. I want Leo near Caesar sometimes, under supervision of course. I believe he may help calm my dog down. In exchange, I will double your pay, and I will make sure both you and your son are well taken care of." Maria sat in stunned silence. This was the last thing she expected to hear. A moment ago, she thought she might lose her job. Now, the most feared man in the city was offering her more money and asking for her son's help with his dog. "Mr. Moretti, I do not know what to say," Maria stammered. "I am grateful, truly. But I am also afraid. Leo is only 3 years old. Caesar is a powerful animal. What if something happens? What if one day he is not so gentle?" Victor's expression grew serious. "I understand your fear. I would never put your son in real danger. I will have Dmitri supervise every single interaction closely. If at any point it seems unsafe, we stop immediately. You have my word." Maria hesitated. She thought about her financial struggles, the bills piling up, the dream of one day moving into a better apartment for Leo. Double pay would change everything for them. But she also thought about the stories she had heard about this house, about the secrets hidden behind its walls, about the danger that seemed to follow Victor Moretti wherever he went. "Can I have a day to think about it?" Maria asked quietly. Victor nodded. "Of course. Take the day. But Maria," he added, his voice lower now, "I do not offer this to just anyone. There is something happening in this house that I cannot explain, something that involves my dog and, apparently, your son. I intend to understand it." Maria left the office with her mind spinning. She walked through the long hallways of the mansion in a daze, barely noticing the other staff members who glanced at her curiously as she passed. When she finally reached the small break room where she usually ate lunch, she sat down heavily and put her head in her hands. Rosa found her there a few minutes later. The older woman sat down beside her, concern written across her face. "What did he say to you?" Rosa asked gently. "Are you in trouble?" Maria shook her head and quietly explained everything Victor had told her. Rosa listened carefully, her expression growing more thoughtful with every word. "I have worked in this house for 6 years," Rosa finally said. "I have never once seen Victor Moretti show kindness to anyone outside his family. Not once. Whatever happened yesterday with your son and that dog, it means something to him." "But is it safe?" Maria asked, her voice full of worry. "Rosa, you know this house better than anyone. Is it safe for my son to be near that man, near that dog, near any of this?" Rosa's face grew serious, and she glanced around the room before leaning in closer, lowering her voice. "Nothing about this house is completely safe, Maria. But I will tell you something. Victor Moretti is many things. Dangerous, yes. Ruthless with his enemies, yes. But I have never known him to break his word once he gives it. If he says he will protect your son, he will." Maria nodded slowly, though the worry did not leave her heart. That night, she lay awake again, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, listening to Leo's soft breathing beside her. She thought about the offer. She thought about the danger. She thought about the strange connection between her innocent little boy and the fierce guard dog that even grown men feared. By morning, Maria had made her decision. But she had no idea that this choice would lead her and Leo directly into secrets far more dangerous than a Rottweiler's temper, secrets that Victor Moretti had been hiding for years. Maria woke up early the next morning with her decision already made in her heart. She dressed Leo carefully, gave him breakfast, and walked with him to the mansion instead of leaving him with a neighbor. Her hands were still shaking slightly, but her mind was clear. She needed this job. She needed the money. And somewhere deep inside, she also felt a strange pull toward the mystery Victor had spoken about. When she arrived, Rosa was waiting near the entrance, looking relieved to see her. "You came back," Rosa said with a small smile. "Good. Mr. Moretti has been asking about you since early this morning." Maria was led to the office again, Leo's small hand held tightly in hers. Victor was already there, standing near the window this time instead of sitting behind his desk. Caesar was beside him, but Dmitri, the dog handler, stood nearby as well, watching everything closely. "You came back," Victor said, turning around. There was something almost like relief in his voice, though he tried to hide it behind his usual calm expression. "I accept your offer, Mr. Moretti," Maria said firmly. "But I have conditions. Dimitri must always be present when Leo is near Caesar. And if I ever say it is enough, you must respect that immediately." Victor studied her for a long moment, clearly surprised that a maid would set conditions for him. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Agreed," he said. "I respect people who protect what matters to them." Over the next few days, a strange new routine began in the mansion. Every afternoon, Dimitri would bring Caesar to a quiet garden area behind the house. Maria would bring Leo, and the little boy would play near the dog under careful watch. At first, Dimitri was nervous, standing close with a firm grip on Caesar's leash. But each day, the same thing happened. The moment Leo appeared, Caesar's entire body relaxed. His ears dropped from their alert position. His tail wagged softly. He would lie down beside the boy and simply watch him play, calm as could be. Dimitri had never seen anything like it. He had worked with Caesar since the dog was a puppy, and he knew every part of his aggressive, protective personality. Yet here was a 3-year-old child who seemed to melt away all of that tension with nothing but his presence. One afternoon, while Leo napped in a small chair nearby, Dimitri finally spoke to Maria honestly. "Can I tell you something?" he asked quietly, glancing around to make sure nobody else was listening. "Caesar has not always been this troubled. Something happened about 2 months ago that changed him completely." Maria leaned in, curious. "What happened?" Dimitri hesitated, clearly torn between loyalty to his boss and a growing trust in Maria. "There was an incident," he finally said. "Late at night, in the East Wing storage rooms. I do not know all the details. Nobody does, except Mr. Moretti and a few of his closest men. But Caesar was there. Something frightened him badly, or hurt him. He came back from that night different. More aggressive during the day, but also more anxious. He barely sleeps anymore. He paces at night. Even Mr. Moretti has noticed it." Maria's heart began to beat faster. "Do you think something dangerous happened in this house?" Dimitri's eyes flickered nervously toward the mansion. "I think," he said carefully, "that there are parts of this house even I am not allowed to know about. And I think whatever happened that night is connected to why Caesar behaves the way he does now." Before Maria could ask another question, footsteps approached. Both of them straightened up quickly as Victor walked into the garden, his expression unreadable as always. Dimitri gave Maria a small warning look before turning to greet his boss. The conversation cut short. That evening, as Maria walked home with Leo asleep in her arms, her mind raced with questions. What had happened in the East Wing storage rooms? Why was it such a secret, even among Victor's own trusted staff? And why did she suddenly feel like she and her son had been pulled into something far bigger and more dangerous than she had originally believed? Over the following week, Maria noticed small, strange details around the mansion that she had never paid attention to before. A section of the East Wing hallway was always locked, guarded by 2 men who never left their post. Staff members who worked near that area seemed unusually quiet and nervous. Once, she overheard 2 guards speaking in hushed, urgent tones about someone named Nikolai, and how he had not been seen since that night. When they noticed her nearby, they immediately stopped talking and walked away. Maria began to feel a mixture of fear and determination. She loved her job, and she was starting to care deeply about the family she worked for, in a strange way. Victor was cold and dangerous, yes, but she had also seen glimpses of a different side of him, especially when he watched Leo and Caesar together. He looked, in those moments, almost human. Almost like a man carrying an unbearable weight he could not share with anyone. One night, after finishing her cleaning duties, Maria found herself near the locked section of the East Wing. Her curiosity, mixed with a strange protective instinct for the family she now felt connected to, pulled her closer. The guards had briefly stepped away for a shift change, leaving the hallway empty. Maria knew she should turn around and walk away. She knew this was not her business. But something inside her would not let her leave. She reached the large wooden door at the end of the hallway, the one always kept locked, the one nobody spoke about. To her surprise, it was slightly open, just a crack, left unlocked by mistake during the shift change. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced around one more time to make sure she was truly alone. Then, slowly, carefully, she pushed the door open just a little further and peered inside. What she saw in that dim, quiet room made her stomach turn to ice, and she immediately understood why Caesar had changed so much after that night 2 months ago. Maria stood frozen in the doorway, her hand still resting on the old wooden door. The room inside was dim, lit only by a single hanging light bulb that swayed slightly, casting long shadows across the floor. At first, her eyes could not make sense of what she was looking at. Then, slowly, the details became clear, and her breath caught in her throat. The room was some kind of storage space, but it did not look like ordinary storage. Metal chains hung from one wall. A heavy wooden chair sat in the center of the room, with thick leather straps attached to its arms and legs. Dark stains covered parts of the concrete floor, stains that Maria did not want to think too closely about. In the corner, she saw a small collection of items, a torn jacket, a broken watch, and what looked like a bloodied bandage. Maria's hand flew to her mouth to stop herself from gasping out loud. Her mind raced back to the whispered conversation she had overheard, the guard speaking about someone named Nikolai who had not been seen since that night. Suddenly, pieces of the mystery began falling into place in the worst possible way. This was not just a storage room. This was where something terrible had happened. Something violent. A sudden noise echoed from further down the hallway, footsteps approaching quickly. Maria's heart nearly stopped. She quickly stepped back, pulled the door closed as gently as she could, and hurried away from the area, her legs shaking with every step. She turned a corner just as the guards returned to their post, completely unaware that she had seen what was behind that door. Maria did not sleep at all that night. She lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the image of that room over and over again. She thought about Victor's cold, controlled demeanor. She thought about the rumors she had always brushed aside, stories about his enemies disappearing without a trace. She had chosen to ignore those rumors because she needed the job, because Victor had always been fair and even kind toward her and Leo. But now, she could not ignore the truth staring her in the face. She was working for a dangerous, violent man. And whatever had happened to Caesar 2 months ago in that room had likely happened to a real person, someone named Nikolai, someone who may never have walked out of that mansion alive. The next morning, Maria considered not going to work at all. She thought about packing her things, taking Leo, and simply disappearing from the city before anyone noticed. But she had very little money saved, nowhere else to go, and Victor Moretti was not a man people easily hid from. Running might make things worse, not better. So instead, she forced herself to walk to the mansion as usual, her heart heavy with fear and uncertainty. When she arrived, everything seemed normal on the surface. Rosa greeted her with a warm smile, unaware of anything unusual. The other staff members went about their daily tasks. But Maria could not shake the image from the night before, and she found herself glancing nervously toward the east wing every time she passed near it. That afternoon, during Leo and Caesar's usual time together in the garden, Victor joined them earlier than expected. Maria tensed the moment she saw him approaching. She tried to keep her expression calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she watched him settle onto a garden bench near his dog. Victor noticed something different in her behavior immediately. He was a man who paid close attention to details, a skill that had kept him alive and in power for many years. "You seem troubled today," he said, watching her carefully. "Is something wrong?" Maria's mind raced, searching for an excuse. "I did not sleep well last night, sir. That is all." Victor studied her for a long moment, his sharp eyes narrowing slightly, as if he could sense there was more to the story. But he did not push further. Instead, he turned his attention back to Caesar and Leo, who were playing together peacefully near a small garden fountain. "He has slept through the night twice this week," Victor said quietly, almost to himself. "For the first time in 2 months. Ever since your son started spending time with him." Maria forced herself to focus on the conversation, pushing away the fear churning inside her. "I am glad he is feeling better, Mr. Moretti." Victor turned to look at her directly. "Do you know why he changed? Why he became so anxious?" Maria's heart skipped a beat. She quickly shook her head. "No, sir. I do not know anything about that." She could not tell if Victor believed her or not. His expression remained unreadable, as always. After a moment of tense silence, he simply nodded and looked back toward the dog and the boy. "There are things in this house," Victor said slowly, choosing his words with unusual care, "that are dangerous to know. I say this not as a threat, Maria, but as a warning, for your own safety and for your son's. The less you know about certain matters, the safer you both will be." Maria's blood ran cold. Did he know she had seen the room? Was this his way of telling her to stay quiet, or was it simply a general warning? She could not be sure, and the uncertainty terrified her even more than a direct threat would have. "I understand, sir," she said quietly, keeping her eyes lowered. Victor studied her for one more long moment before standing up. "Good. I trust you will remember that." He called for Dmitri to take Caesar back inside, then turned to leave the garden. But just before walking away, he paused and looked back at Maria one final time. "Whatever you may have heard or seen in this house," he said, his voice low and serious, "some secrets are better left buried. For everyone's sake." Maria watched him walk away, her entire body trembling. She now understood, without any doubt, that Victor Moretti knew far more than he was letting on. And she had just been given a warning wrapped inside a kindness, a warning that could mean the difference between safety and danger for her and her son. That night, as Maria tucked Leo into bed, she made a difficult decision. She needed to find out the truth about what really happened in that room, and about the mysterious man named Nikolai, before it was too late for both of them. Maria could not stop thinking about Victor's warning. Every word he had spoken in the garden echoed in her mind, over and over, like a warning bell she could not silence. Some secrets are better left buried. But Maria was not the kind of woman who could simply walk away from the truth once she had glimpsed it. She needed to know what had truly happened in that locked room, and whether she and Leo were truly safe in this house. A few days later, her chance came unexpectedly. Rosa, the house manager, asked Maria to help organize old files in a small records room near the kitchen, a task Maria had never done before. As she sorted through dusty folders and old employment papers, one name suddenly caught her eye. Nikolai Petrov, a former employee, listed as a security guard, hired almost 3 years earlier. His file had a strange note attached, dated exactly 2 months ago. It simply read, "Employment terminated. Personal matter resolved." Maria's hands trembled as she stared at the paper. This was the same time frame Dmitri had mentioned, the same time Caesar had changed. She quickly searched for more information, flipping through nearby folders, when Rosa suddenly walked back into the room. Rosa noticed the folder in Maria's hands immediately, and her face grew pale. "Where did you find that?" she asked quietly, closing the door behind her. Maria decided, in that moment, that she needed answers more than she needed safety. "Rosa, please," she said. "I saw the room in the east wing. The chains, the chair. I heard the guards talking about someone named Nikolai. I need to know what happened. Please tell me the truth." Rosa sat down slowly, her expression heavy with the weight of a secret she had carried for a long time. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Nikolai worked here for years. He seemed loyal, trustworthy. But he was secretly working for a rival family, feeding them information about Mr. Moretti's operations. 2 months ago, Mr. Moretti discovered the betrayal." Maria's stomach tightened. "What happened to him?" Rosa lowered her voice even further. "There was a confrontation, late at night, in that room. Caesar was there because Nikolai tried to run when he was caught. The dog was used to stop him. Mr. Moretti dealt with the situation himself. I do not know all the details, and I have never asked. But Nikolai never left this house again." Maria felt a chill run down her spine, but Rosa continued, her voice softer now. "Maria, I know this sounds terrifying. And it is. Mr. Moretti is not a gentle man in his business. But I want you to understand something important. He has never harmed an innocent person, not once in the years I have worked here. He deals harshly with betrayal and threats to his family. But loyalty, kindness, honesty, these things he protects fiercely. That is why he has never harmed you or Leo. That is why, despite everything, he has grown to trust you both." Maria sat in silence, processing everything. It was a terrible truth, but somehow it also made a strange kind of sense. She thought about Caesar's anxiety, his sleepless nights, haunted by the violence he had witnessed that evening. She thought about Victor's careful, guarded kindness toward her and Leo, so different from the ruthless reputation that followed him everywhere. Caesar was traumatized, Maria said quietly, almost to herself. Just like a person would be. Rosa nodded. Animals feel fear and stress too, especially loyal ones like him. He was there for something violent, something he did not understand. It makes sense that he needed something innocent, something pure, to help him heal. That evening, Maria watched from the garden window as Leo played with Caesar one final time before heading home. The dog, once feared and troubled, now rested peacefully beside the laughing toddler, his tail wagging gently in the evening breeze. Victor stood nearby, watching the scene with an expression Maria had never seen on his face before, something close to genuine peace. As Maria prepared to leave for the day, Victor approached her one last time. "I know you found out," he said simply, no anger in his voice, only quiet acceptance. "Rosa told me." Maria's heart skipped, but Victor raised a hand gently before she could speak. "I am not upset. You deserve to understand the world you and your son have become part of. I made you a promise to protect you both, and I intend to keep it, regardless of what you now know." "Thank you, Mr. Moretti," Maria said softly. Victor looked toward Leo and Caesar one more time. "Your son gave my dog something none of us could. Peace, after something terrible. I do not know how to explain it, but I know I owe you both a debt I intend to repay, for as long as you wish to remain part of this house." From that day forward, Maria's life changed completely. She was promoted to a trusted position within the household, working closely with Rosa and even with Victor himself on certain matters. Leo continued visiting Caesar every day, and the once feared guard dog became gentle, calm, and deeply attached to the little boy who had once, by pure accident, wandered into his life during a simple bath. Maria never forgot what she had learned about the dangerous world Victor Moretti lived in. But she also never forgot the kindness he had shown her and her son, kindness that few people ever saw from him. In a world of danger, secrets, and violence, an unexpected friendship between a toddler and a mafia boss's dog had changed everything, not just for Caesar, but for Maria, for Leo, and even for Victor Moretti himself.